Yo, what is going on, you guys? So today I'm bringing guys a brand new sports cards video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about some major things that I see happening in the market of the Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer, specifically in a PSA 10, and why I believe the future is incredibly bright for this card and a lot of other cards that are kind of going to pile into this. So without further ado, let's hop right into the video. If you guys are unaware, this is probably the most iconic card in the sports card industry, just based off of the design and the overall significance of the card. Now, as you can see right here, this card right here is a pop 330 in a PSA 10, and it's currently around a $200,000 card. I personally believe that the market hasn't quite reacted to what we are seeing happening in this market. Of course, we've seen quite a lot of sales over the last couple of years, but I have been noticing more recently that supply has been drying up a little bit, and they're getting into the hands of more long-term holders. This card has been sticking around that $200,000 price point for, a couple years now, at least around 2 years. There have been a couple, lower sales and a couple higher sales, but overall, throughout 2022, throughout 2023, and throughout 2024 thus far, this card has been around that $200,000 price point. All of these sales that have been taking place on a bunch of different platforms, you got some PWCC, you got some Golden Auctions, some Heritage, of course, a couple on eBay, you got some on Alt. You've got a lot of these cards that are moving hands into investors who got in at 200,000, who are likely seeing, waiting to see a better return to sell. And I think a lot of these sales are getting into the hands of more long-term holders. It is a lot more unlikely for someone to be buying into this card at, 170,000 who would want to take profit at 180,000. So I think a lot of the sellers for these cards over the last couple of years are sellers who sold the card because they were in it for 30,000 or 40 or whatever they were in it for, but it was likely a lot less than 200,000, because if you guys don't recall, prior to 2020, this card was well under $100,000. You could have seen a lot of these sell for around that 30,000 or even less. So I think right now what we've been seeing is a lot of profits being taken from these investors who got in at these prices, and they are currently selling and seeing good returns, and they're happy with it. And I think the money's moving from those more weaker hands, you could call them, people who are more likely to sell. And now every single sale that I see happening, I believe, are going to be people who are holding it more for the long term. There are companies buying these cards. Of course, there are fractional ownership companies buying these cards, and there are more long-term investors buying these cards. And I don't believe, based on how many sales we've had of this card in that $200,000 price range, I'm fairly confident that there will be less sellers in the future than they have been the past couple of years. And what I could see happening with that, depending on where the sports card market goes, of course, I'm pretty bullish given Fanatics is in. We're having an influx of buyers. We had a great year for the sports card industry, but this card hasn't quite reacted yet. And I believe at some point it will react. We've seen it happen a lot with, the auto markets for a lot of, hyped up players. Of course, we saw it with Michael Jordan's exquisite market as well. But a lot of these cards have seen great growth in this last year solely because of, the amount of collectors holding for the long term and the supply drying up. And we've seen supply dry up for so many cards this year, mainly, the Kobe's, the Jordans, the LeBrons. They're higher end cards. If you look exquisite, flawless, of course, Fleer is going to come into that kind of category. So we've seen a lot of these cards see great growth this year. Do I believe that this will continue forever in terms of these cards? I think at some point we're going to see investors holding until they're seeing higher prices. The people who are buying in, like I said, for 200,000 are probably not hoping it goes to 220,000 and take profit. They're probably holding more for the long term, hoping to see, maybe potentially a $1 million price point for that card one day. I believe that most of the people buying for the long term at 200,000 are seeing well below well beyond 200,000 in the future for the Michael Jordan Fleer PSA 10. So what I believe that could mean for the market, we saw this card, of course, at one point come up to almost $800,000. I think this card right now, given the significance sports cards is gaining, the more investors coming in, more companies innovating, and just more well-known, higher net worth individuals entering sports cards because of fanatics coming in and the crowd that they are bringing. I believe that there will be well beyond 330 long-term holders on this card at some point. And I think what that's going to cause is supply to really dry up. I mean, we saw how much this card was transacting in 2022. If you look at September 2022, for example, this card, the PSA 10 sold 4 times. If you look at October, it sold 3 times. If you look at November, it sold 4 times. And if you look at right now, this card did not sell in October of this year. It sold once in November of this year, and there hasn't been a sale yet in December. It sold once in August. So I think what we're starting to see happening is this card's transacting less. There's less sellers for the card, and there's coming to be more buyers. I don't know why the price hasn't fully reacted to it yet. I think there's sort of this barrier that there's an expectation that this card's going to be $200,000. And I think we're lacking a little catalyst for the card right now. I think we're one catalyst away, something happening, whether it's a documentary, whether it's, just fanatics growing the hobby and this card seeing 250, 300. I think we're a couple catalysts away, maybe one catalyst away from this card really taking off in price. So it's just personally what I'm seeing happening, in this market. I could be wrong, but I personally have been seeing this trend a little bit. I think over 2 years of consolidation of a price point where the support has not really been broken, aside from a couple sales that landed a little bit low. I think the support's been there for a while. We're moving hands, and every time it moves hands, I become more confident because the new buyers, like I said, more likely to hold if they're buying in at 200,000, because if you're buying in at 200,000 and if you're buying in during these market conditions without, the 2020 and 2021 craze, if you're buying in now, you're most likely have a more long-term mindset than if you were buying in 2020, and hoping for that big jump and during that whole euphoria. So that's why I personally believe we're going to see a big increase in Michael Jordan's 1986 Fleer PSA 10. I don't know if it'll happen next month. I don't know if it'll happen next year, but I believe in the near future, whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, we're going to see this card break out of its consolidation period and see, some growth. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Of course, this is a lot of people's grail cards, and there are only 330 of them. So, that's definitely something to keep in mind. But I really hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. We are on our way to 60,000 subscribers. I'm so grateful for all the support you guys have been showing me recently. So other than that, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'm out.